Hi, I'm just here doing the check over on your Toro Power Max snowblower, and I just want to go through some issues that I found with it during the service check over. And what I'll do is I'll submit an estimate to you for completing the repairs that need to be done, and along with the service itself. So let's just look at the big items that need to be repaired. Just bear with me. I have to grab my list here off my bench. Let's see. First, the engine itself does not start. It will start off of fuel sprayed directly into the intake, but it will not start using the carburetor and supplying fuel to it that way. I drained the fuel out of the tank and changed the spark plug. Will not even start with choke. So that tells me there's a fair amount of contamination of some type in the carburetor, so that would be a carburetor service. So what I usually do is I pull them apart and determine if they're salvageable or not, because sometimes I've found in the past that we can have water contamination, you get corrosion in there, and sometimes you can't save the carburetors and you have to replace them. Next. So just so you know, it does start with spray fuel, so the engine does start and run for a moment. I just don't know how well yet. Next, the impeller bearing. So if we go around to the front of the snowblower, you have what's called your impeller shaft that runs through to the other side of the chassis, and on the other side there is a big pulley, which is way down in there, and you can see the belt riding on it, rides up to the shaft. So that's your auger belt. So when you pull your auger lever, engages that pulley, tensions it up. But if you watch as I pull that auger lever, the pulley itself is actually moving. It's going up and down. It shouldn't do that. So if we go down in here, same pulley, there's your auger belt. If I push up on the bottom of it, it bounces up and down. So that is your impeller bearing, and possibly the mounting cup that it retains it. So because these actually have, I do believe they have a spherical bearing in them. They don't have just a regular roller bearing. So there might be a chance here, if that's wore bad enough, that we have to replace that cup mount too. Next. So since we're right here, both the auger belt and your drive belt have lots of age cracking. I would replace both of those right now. There's no sense in trying to get into the winter with those, because they're both going to fall apart on you. Next thing, and this is also rubber related, would be your friction disc rubber. You can see all the cuts on it. So what happens with these is they get age cracked or heated or wore out, and now what's going to happen is little chunks of this is just going to start peeling off, and you won't have a drive anymore. So I'd recommend replacing that friction disc rubber. So it's not just the rubber, it's the whole disc. So let's see what else. Impeller bearing, engine, auger and drive belts. You have a oil leak at the valve cover gasket. So that's your OHV, so overhead valve cover, and there's a gasket, and you can see where all the oil has been leaking out in the past on this. So you need a new gasket. Rubber friction disc. And I think that is it. So what I've done so far is I have changed the oil, installed a new spark plug, hoping that would help us out with getting it started. It did not, and it has new fuel in it. But what I'll do is we'll turn that valve off, and if you want to continue and have the carburetor serviced and the other items completed, then we can save that fuel to have in the tank. So I'll send an estimate along to you with a price for completing the service. The carburetor part of that estimate, it will be on the estimate as a set time, because that's what I have, a set time for servicing snowblower carburetors. But if I open that carburetor up and it needs more than just a service, then I'll let you know. So that would be the first item that I would do on the list. I wouldn't do any of the other repairs until we make sure that the beating heart, the engine, actually was going to run for you for a decent repair cost. Anyway, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon.